room, what room number? Guys, next to the 3027 is the alumni room for the information system. Yeah, the fancy one. Yeah, and with the robot, if you don't know, there's a the robot there. We will have pizza and refreshment, so you are welcome to stop by and just have a like free discussion. And also people online, like the project management class, they are also invited to have a free discussion. You just walk in, stop by, and just free talks. Okay, that would be nice if you would like to stop by tomorrow. And we will hand back to Eric and continue our discussion.
Why don't you put us in room 168?
168. This one?
Lucky number.
Lucky number. Yeah, because that room don't belong to us. 168. We don't have that room. Okay.
Cultural problem.
Yeah, cultural problem.
For those of you who have grown up here or studied any of the companies here, you'll understand that this is the #1 problem with the HR system in Taiwan. Most of it was inherited from the Japanese seniority system. But our company, for example, they didn't copy all of it. And 2 areas. The pure seniority system in most of the Japanese companies that are still in business, the annual review is 2 possibilities. Bless you. There's an annual review for everybody, and there's a 6-month review for high potential employees. And high potential employee is not just one boss saying this is a high potential employee. It's a committee that has to designate the people to that category. In the 6-month review period, the budget is completely separate from the annual review process. And it's only open to people on the high potential list. And high potential list includes an age cap of 35 years old. So it's for a very specific purpose to retain high potential young talent. Even TSMC doesn't do that here. And as complexity increases, in other words, the 5-generation workforce here, or global operations, right? We should not assume that everybody knows how to manage people. The second key takeaway is that as we get older, sometimes our preferences change. When I'm young, maybe I don't mind managing people. But as I get older, I realize that it's not my primary interest anymore. It takes up too much time. Those Generation Z kids. Just kidding. Same for universities. If the education system here was smart, I would give professors an option. You want to focus on teaching, or you want to focus on research, or you want to focus on corporate engagement, helping consulting for local companies and having them invest in scholarship funds and return something. Right? Because maybe one of the teachers in their 30s, they want to do research. As they get older, maybe they want to mentor people. Right? We don't generally put that kind of flexibility in the system. What that means is that people's efficiency drops over time because they're not motivated. They're not engaged. So the better HR systems we separate very early on this dual career path. This dual career path has been in effect in the US since the 1950s. Shortly after World War II, no Japanese students here, right? So I talked about this subject. When I grew up in Japan, by the way, the textbook on World War II was 3.5 pages. Pearl Harbor, 0. Ijo Sen, 1937 in Nanjing, about 3,000 people were killed. excuse me, is that per hour? The teacher hit me with a ruler. I still have. She almost severed my finger off. Metal ruler, right? They didn't change the textbook until 1985. So 1986 was the first year the textbook was in the classrooms. So I was in Hong Kong airport one day and I saw this tour group of all Japanese going to Nanjing, and I thought, these people are out of it. They must want to die, right? And I looked at their age and I realized they don't know what happened there, right? Because it wasn't in their textbook. And I was like placing a bet with my colleague, and how many of them I think are going to get back here alive, right? Because that was the time they were burning Toyotas and Shanghai and stuff, right? So the cultural stuff is important, but if you want to develop future talent, and you just randomly assume that us old people can manage young people, guess what? Most of us can't. And when you throw in the global operations, the complexity increases, five-generation workforce increases. So if your brain and wisdom can only handle this much complexity, and I know you have this much complexity to deal with in an assignment, guess what? You're going to fail. Now, in a well-designed HR system, you can make the same salary, same benefits. Right? And in reality, in most companies, you need both. Right? So if I have an R&D research person, and they're not effective at designing new products or creating patents, I either ask them to leave or put them on a disciplinary plan or slow down their growth, something. I have a manager who's not effective and I have a high turnover rate and stuff. I don't touch that, right? Why is that? Very short-sighted, right? Because the boss who should fire the people is also not good at this, right? So they can't fire someone else who's also not good at it, right? It's not their priority. And they also don't see it as a problem. So that's why the older companies, this kind of legacy issue stays with them. Now, interestingly, in our case, we have some factories here that we bought from a US company called DuPont. DuPont was the first non-government entity to actually implement this. So we bought the company we bought was using the system here in Taiwan. I wasn't here at the time, but I'm guessing someone looked at that and goes, idiots. The US government started this after World War II to retain a lot of good engineers who had developed military-type solutions, thinking that they're probably smart enough to also create some good commercial solutions as well, or dual-purpose stuff in the future. So when you look to join a company, if they're not doing this, and you're in HR, one-word advice. Run. Run fast. So on the cost slide earlier, the strategy. The reason most of these digital transformation and other ones fail, the people form the strategy first. At least the people, a lot of people should be familiar with Merck. It's a very famous global pharmaceutical company. They also have a large office here. Culture will block everything. Right? You hire a consultant to give you a strategy and it doesn't work. Probably not because it was the wrong strategy. The organization and the culture weren't prepared and didn't allow it to be implemented. Microsoft may be my least favorite company. 50 years old last year, and haven't launched a product that works right the first time ever, right? But the advantage of being a monopoly. Well, they did do one good thing. They bailed out Apple from going When you lose innovation, you're dead. Translated version for local students. I know sometimes your primary education system is not good at teaching concepts. I was in Japan as a kid, the same thing, just memorized. Later on in life, unless you saw the exact same thing, you didn't know how to solve that problem, right? So it's slowly changing, but important concept.